Hey guys, I'm Thaddeus Tani with On Purpose Media. Welcome to a longer form video of mine. I've been at the Epic 2026 here doing a 5 under 5 series with a lot of individuals, and I ran into Jim and I was like, you know what, Jim, I don't think our conversation would suffice in 5 questions in 5 minutes or less. So we're gonna sit down and have a longer conversation. All right, so I have 3 different question sheets for non-owners. So I have question sheet 1, 2, or 3. Which one would you prefer?
Let's go with door 3.
What's behind door number 3? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, quick background story, introduction, so when people are listening to this, they're like, okay, I can listen to Jim.
Oh, there you go. I'm just an Ohio boy. Just a heating and air tech that grew up in Southern Ohio and went into the trades right out of high school. And I've lived and breathed heating and air all of my life. Had a company in Ohio for 7 years, sold it, moved to California. Got married, ran another company there for 15 years, raised my kids on heating and air income, and they're all adults now. And at this point, I've been given the privilege to give back to the industry what the industry took care of me and my family. And my form of giving back is the ability to share technical side of things with heating, air conditioning, primarily residential, to help techs that are getting in the trade be able to be more effective, learn how to troubleshoot faster and get through everything in their process easier. So at this point, I'm here to help the industry, and I do so under the platform of Copeland. White Rogers by Copeland's the department I'm in, and it's an honor to have a opportunity to work for them and do this, because the products that they make are products that I would have had on my service truck. Thermostats was a go-to for me for White Rogers. I could put another brand of thermostat in, and I called them techie because the homeowners were not all engineers, and so I would have to go back out a couple weeks later and go through the programming, explain it to the homeowner. I'd put in a White Rogers thermostat. 2 weeks later, I'd call them up and they'd say, "Oh yeah, we understand the program. We got it good." They were made simple for people to understand, and so to be able to share knowledge and share those,
right,
that's just come true.
And I think oftentimes people get lost in this world of, they know the technical back end, the technical background. I have to guard this a lot with the marketing company and be like, okay, I can get technical, but most people don't understand that, those nuances. So bringing it down to the simplistic, which is a key thing.
Absolutely.
So cool. One question number 1, again, this will probably spawn off a bunch of other ones. What is the number 1 trait that you look for in a leader or a manager?
Great questions.
Yes.
And so my title is a National Technical Training Manager.
Yes. It actually blended. We chose door number 3 that you guys watched and it says question. You look, you can see question sheet 3.
Oh, look at that.
There you go.
And so I'm a manager of one.
Yep.
I manage myself. So
what trait do you look for in yourself?
There you go. In that, it's a blend of a lot of things that I would be looking for. And one of the things I think I would look for as beneficial has to do more with a characteristic or a trait of someone in sales. And that goes to something that's called 2 types of sales people. You either have hunters or you have gatherers.
Yep.
You have the hunters who's not afraid to strike up a conversation, not afraid to go out, introduce themselves, and gather new business in, bring new business in, because the gatherer is the other term that we would use. And that term would refer to those who, I'm not sure, I might get a no there, so I'm not going to go get that no. I'm going to take care of this base that I have, and I'm just going to keep gathering sales from the existing base. And that gathering mentality does not lend to increased growth. And so, so how does that tie in with training? It ties in really nicely with Epic here, and the fact that there are a lot of contractors here that are interested in growing. And if I was looking for someone else in training, I would want someone that's not afraid to walk up to these contractors that are here, introduce themselves, share what they can add from the technicals perspective for that company to make more money.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of people here are also pretty open to that too.
They are.
If you walk into a group, and even last night, I'm walking around by myself, you're walking around by yourself. you see a group where you see a person, you just go up and introduce yourself and strike up a conversation. They're open to having a conversation.
Absolutely.
Because everybody's here for the one purpose of sharpening their axe.
And last night was awesome for that.
Yes, it was.
I was very pleased with the new relationships that I was able to build. And I put it that way, where I'm not here to sell somebody something. I'm here to help their company make more money, increase their profits. And I do so by helping with the technical side of things. Yes, I work for a manufacturer, and yes, there are going to be things as I share that are going to tie in with products that we carry, but at the same point in time, a good bit of what I'm going to share, helping technical wise, is going to be across the board beneficial no matter what brand of product it is. So my training isn't necessarily product specific. However, back to the original comment earlier, I really think that our product is some of the superior product out on the market. So that makes it super easy to be able to do that.
Yeah, makes sense. And I like that. And again, it's just this ability to be able to educate. And I think the other part for you and you look at, okay, traits and leaders or managers, and it's actually funny, leader and manager are actually two different titles, two different things. A manager is literally, they just guide people and tell people what to do, in a sense. And I'm talking broad buckets here, I'm talking individual things. Where a leader, your job is to get people to follow you and lead them somewhere, where the manager doesn't necessarily do that. And I think it's funny because I had AI help me with these questions.
There you go.
But as I'm looking at this and I'm reading, I'm like, there actually should be two different questions because there's two different outcomes for a leader versus a manager.
Just a minute, let me get my phone out and get an AI answer for you.
There you go. It's funny. So I've been running some interviews in the business, and that's what I do, and they're all part of what I do in my role inside of our organization. But it's funny, I can actually see people. So we have our hiring funnel is unique because we have they have to watch a video. It's a 3-minute video of me talking about the company and core values and whatever, and then it's 10 basic questions or whatever, and they have to upload a 1-minute video of themselves. Because I don't really care what a person looks like really for my role. I want to be able to see if you're okay to record the video. And if I'm hiring somebody from near shore or offshore, I want to be able to understand them.
Absolutely.
That's literally the only two things. But then they go through a long questionnaire. And at the very end, there's a password from that first video that they have to enter in. And then we automate it. So that way, if they don't enter the password, the right phrasing, we never see the resume.
Sure.
But it's funny, the people, when they answer these questions, you can tell the ones that have used AI, you're able to write it, and then you get them on. I don't really care. You want to use AI to write it, sure, go for it. Fill your boots. That's where our day and age is. 2026.
Absolutely.
But then when you get them on an interview, and I've seen it before, where you ask a question, you can see or hear them typing a little bit, and they're delayed, and then they look and they pause, and then they start reading the AI answer. I've seen that a few times. I'm like, you're fucking using AI in an interview right now. Like, wow. I'm like, no, we're done the interview. And I don't mind on the answers, but don't use it in day-to-day conversation.
So that is a challenge. And so leading by example, as far as leadership versus managing, I don't like to use the term managing. I would prefer to use leading, and it's leading out front. It's being the example of what needs to be led. And I think that's key. Back to hiring and looking from that aspect of things, one of the most valuable questions that I would have when I was interviewing, and may be again today, some point in time in the future here, but the question was just simply, what did you like about your last job? Question number 2, what was the most frustrating thing that you had to deal with in your last job? Because if you have openness, transparency in what your frustration was, that's going to give you a lot of insight into attitude, into personality, into how that individual is going to be able to fit into your culture or your company. And so I found those types of questions more beneficial than how many years of experience do you have?
I actually liked it. I asked the same thing. What do you least like about your current or your last job? Same thing. One question that we've also added in, and by the way, this is a good spot of mine. I like culture. I like hiring, and I like recruiting the right types of people to fit into a culture. One question that I also started asking is, describe your ideal boss. And so now they're going to describe what type of a boss or a leader or a manager they want. And then you can go, that's actually not me. This person would actually have a frustration here. Because I know from like myself personally, so I hired a marketing coordinator / marketing assistant / executive assistant. And one of the things in the interview that I said and describe your perfect boss, and she answered, I'm like, so just let you know, my manager leadership style is figure it out. Here's the stuff, go figure it out. And they're like, I'm like, that's how I operate. I'm like, I don't need to micromanage you.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But go figure it out and come back to me with what you've come up with. And she's like, okay, I can work with that. And so far she's enjoyed that because of, I understand that, she understood that, we had that transparency. But like, when you look at the hiring questions, I love 2-stage interviews. Interview stage number 1, you can do this flip-flop depending on how you want to run your organization. We actually look at cultural fit first.
Okay.
And then we look at technical fit second. And so I've phrased a bunch of questions in our interview to look and assess against our core values. And then I also look for continuity in those answers. So the third question I ask is what motivates you? So I ask that question to people, what motivates you? And most people answer the personal side. If they answer the professional side, that's not what I'm after. I'm asking like what motivates you? But then here's the next layer that I ask in later is, if money were unlimited, what would you do? And so I look for continuity, and so people are like, if they're going to be watching this, I'm going to be hiring them. Now I've given a little bit of a secret, but most people probably won't. But then you can look for continuity in their answers, because most people, if they talk about something personally that motivates them, it should generally line up with what if money were unlimited, what would you do? But now I'm looking to see if they're purpose driven and what's their bigger purpose, because that's one of our core values, right? Purpose driven. So filtering in some of those questions, I think are important.
It is beneficial. And so back to the hiring process, when I was hired, my interview was 5.5 hours long, with 5 different departments and a lunch in the middle of it with the director.
Bunch of ride-alongs or what?
No, this was at the headquarters.
So did they just sit there and grill you question after question? Like how does a 5.5 hour interview go?
So it's 5 different departments.
Right.
So they were searching, how are you going to fit into product management? How are you going to fit into sales? How are you going to fit into marketing? And all of these departments were a part of that process to see how much I could integrate and benefit those departments. And so I don't know if that's normal. A lot of times on a company the size that we are, HR does a lot of that. So we have a little bit of leeway of asking some questions. How much? I don't know at this point, but I do know that we do have quite a robust program that is looking for the technical or the capability side of things, but also the personality and the fit of that. And so, there was 4 or 5 different online tests that I did after I got home from the interview.
What were they? I'm curious.
I don't remember the names of it. 6 years ago, but some of it was competency and some of it was personality. And so it was a blend of the two
Yeah, you're good luck with me thinking when you're saying like, I'm hiring for an operations manager right now. Mine gave 90-day notice. Very nice for her to give 90-day notice. But I was saying about how long our interview process is. That questionnaire probably takes somebody 20 to 30 minutes to do along with the video. So call it 30 minutes. And then we have a 45-minute interview, even if they make it past an application and questionnaire stage, 45-minute interview. And if they make it to that, then we do the skills test. And we do a Kolbe A test, an Enneagram. And then for this particular role, I do the Crystallizer test to see what the integrator score is for EOS. And so that's probably another 45 minutes. And then if they make it to the second interview, that's another 45 minutes. So I'm like, they're into it for 2.5, 3 hours. By the time it's all said and done, I'm like, makes sense.
If you're sincerely interested in the job and it's something that you really want, you're going to be willing to put the time in to do it.
Correct.
And I had the luxury in the process of already having work that I was doing when this process started. It started in January on a lunch break interview, and continued February, March, April, and it wasn't till mid-April that the acceptance, I think is what it would have been called, letter was sent to me. Had things going on in May and giving notice to the previous company, and it was June till I started. So January to June, if you're out there saying, hey, I gotta have a job and I need it right now, sometimes you're not going to get what you're really after.
Correct.
And it does, from the aspect of being someone who's looking for the work. And the downside of that is, so we're talking about this on a level outside of actually doing heating and air work. If you're a contractor and you're doing heating and air work, and you was to take 3, 4, 5 months for the hiring process, and that potential employee is a good potential employee, they're going to have work before then.
Yep.
You don't have that
You don't have
leeway.
months. You have weeks, but you don't have months.
That's right.
But the other part is if you create an organization where people want to work at, they'll actually delay or at least be in truth for you. Like I had that with one of our candidates, and we didn't move forward with her, but she's got a couple other final interviews. She's to let you know, you guys are at the top of my list. And maybe she says that to everybody, but at the same time, you can't drag that along.
Yeah.
Because if you do it, I've done it before where we hire slow and we fire fast. And there's been times where we've hired fast and fired slow, and that happens sometimes too, right? Growing pains, learning curves, right?
Absolutely.
Every time it's happening, I'm like, dang it, I shouldn't have done that. And then you do it again, you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
But it's just the reality of it. But when you look at that cascade of, okay, can you make your decisions quick enough? But also if you create an organization where people want to work, now you're going to be those people are going to want to take the time to go through that process, which is a key thing. You mentioned that 3-4 months in terms of like taking hiring summer rush, kind of getting involved in that. And maybe you're impacted a little bit less in your role right now, but what are some things that you can do, tips, tricks of the trade when you get into extreme busy season of summertime? And now if you're in the Canadian market, it's wintertime, or if you're in the northern market, wintertime. But a lot of, by and large accounts, summer is go time for a lot of heating and cooling companies, and probably yourself included. So how do you manage the rush of the summer?
It's a great question. And the reality is contractors versus manufacturers almost have the reverse of things. My busy time is what the industry would call off season or shoulder season, when contractors are slower, and that's more opportunity for training. It's opportunities for me to be able to get in and help them grow and do training. When it's super hot or cold, they're very busy. And from the manufacturer's side of things, that's our slow time, because we're not interested in going out there and knocking on doors and aggravating someone who's, I got 100 service calls today, I don't have time for you today. So it's almost a reverse.
Interesting. That makes sense, because the same thing with me. Like my busy time is now.
Yeah.
My slow time is summer.
Spring is by and large my busiest time. Fall is busy too, but spring definitely seems it's a lot busier.
Makes sense.
So from the contractor's perspective, that shoulder season, that mild weather spring and fall, that's where building a customer base and having maintenance contracts is key, because now you can take those premium techs that you have and keep them busy through that season doing maintenance. Otherwise, if you don't have customer base, the contract base, and you're just out there cold calling, trying to keep your technicians busy, you run the risk of having to call them off for a day, a week, or however long, and that's very dangerous.
Or you add training programs into the mix and train them.
Correct. But the overhead of that
can be
pretty difficult.
Yep.
So there's challenges with that.
You don't have to train them for a whole entire week, but if you take a half a day or whatever and work on extra training.
Yeah. So for the manufacturer side of things, then it happens a little in the winter, but it seems like more in the summertime when it's warmer. Then you have distributors that have counter days where we, as the manufacturer, sometimes it's inside, sometimes it's in the parking lot at the distributor, where different manufacturers come set up, and they can have a quick interaction with techs or owners that are coming through the store during the day. So that for the sales side of things, summer can still be fairly busy. For training, really it's a time to play catch up, to review training curriculum, to build new curriculum, to improve what you have, get through all of that.
It makes sense. In thinking about training in trade schools, do you think that this actually blends well into the third question, by the way. Do you think trade schools are currently doing a good job preparing the next generation, or do you think that they're falling behind, or are they just maintaining?
There are a lot of trade schools out there.
Yep.
And there's a lot of different levels of trade school.
Yep.
From the aspect, you can go to a trade school for a 2-week class, or a year class, or 2-year class.
To be an certified HVAC tech in Alberta, in Canada, like it's a 4-year program.
Sure.
But it's 2 months at a time. You can challenge the first year, but then you have to go to school for 2 months. In there, you have to get a certain amount of hours, and you do year 3, a certain amount of hours, and you do year 4, and then you're done. So technically, most people do it over 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
Sure. And so looking at those schools in the U.S., some of those short-term schools may be taught by the janitor, maybe not even an HVAC experienced former tech or someone like that. So you really have to look at what school you're wanting to go to, how effective that school is.
Sure.
I look at that and say, yeah, you can look and say their placement rate is a certain amount. The placement rate of you going to a trade school is everything to do with you, how involved you are, how willing you are to learn what you can. And I would break that down further in saying that back in 1988, when I started trade school, it was attended by a partial group of graduates, high school graduates that were paying tuition to learn a trade.
Yep.
And then there was a portion that the government was sending to reintroduce into society. And that's all good. I don't want to discount any of that. I think it's an awesome thing to be able to give anybody the chance and the opportunity for a fresh start and to work with their hands and to make a difference in the lives of other Americans, to be able to go to sleep at night knowing that there's someone else in the country that is comfortable in their own home because of something you did.
Sure.
Very rewarding.
Yep.
Back to the school itself, though, after the first few weeks, for some, it became a social event.
Yep.
Friendships started developing, and it was more along the line of going to share what you did yesterday, last weekend, or something like that. And the intentness and the focus was lost by some that were in attendance.
Yes.
So first and foremost is in looking at trade schools and being effective, the students themselves have to be there because they want to be there, and they have to be intent on learning. That's the first part of that. The second part of that I like to share is what I usually add in some of my training, and that is, for years I heard, I went to trade school, but I didn't learn anything until I got out in the field.
Yeah.
And I really like to rob that thought of most of those people, because you did learn, you just don't realize the portion that you learned. And I say that because the portion that you're learning in trade school is the relationship between volts and amps and watts, and being able to do formulas to figure those out, to understand what CFM means and how to calculate airflow. What is the total external static pressure of a system? Those are basic fundamental things. It used to be subcooling and superheat. Now we're more interested in measuring line sets, weighing in charges. Those basic principles are things that you do learn in the school. What you don't learn in the school is the memorization of operations. And it can be taught in the school. I think it could be taught a little bit better. But the classic scenario is, here's a row of furnaces. You walk out to the lab and you're going to get to do some hands-on stuff. Really cool. All these furnaces have a problem in them.
Yeah.
And you go up and you pull out your meter and you figure out what the problem is. And then you run to the instructor and say, hey, this is the problem. Great, good job. And you're done. In real life, you walk in, you analyze, you figure out the problem, you solve the problem, you cycle the furnace on to make sure that there's no delayed ignition. You turn the furnace off after the blower goes off to make sure everything's happening. You cycle the furnace on to make sure there's no delayed ignition. A lot of times it should be fairly common, especially if you're working in the ignition area, to do at least 2 full cycles.
Yep.
What's that doing in your mind when you're going through the whole sequence of operation twice? It's burning that sequence in. That's where you start to say, now I'm learning, because now I'm memorizing the operation and function. And once I've learned that, and I know that the limit circuit's good because the inducer came on and the pressure switch was open, it closes, and I know that I got 30 seconds to wait to see that igniter to start warming up. Wait a minute, the igniter's not warming up. I don't even have to pull a meter out most of the time when I'm out looking at a furnace to give the initial diagnosis of what's going on. Now, there's exceptions to the rules. When you're dealing with something that's dealing with static pressure or a motor that's overheating that you need to do an amp draw or something like that. There's always exceptions to
Or
rules.
something. Yeah.
But what I like to say is the majority of the troubleshooting that techs can do in the residential realm is usually diagnosed through sight, through hearing, sometimes through smell. Every once in a while I hear somebody saying, yeah, I walked in that house and I could tell there was carbon monoxide in the instant I walked in, just from the odor. And so we're using our senses to do the diagnostics, and we don't have those senses honed when we graduate from school. So therefore we're saying, I didn't learn anything in school. What? You did. You learned all of the equations.
Stuff that you might have forgot about. So I say the same because I went to business school. I didn't really learn how to run a business in school. I learned the financial aspects and the accounting, but I learned relationships.
Absolutely.
And that's the teaching. So.
So I'm running a company in California. 11 employees, go down to 2 through what I call the Great Recession. And it's okay, I'm going to learn how to run this company. I've been running it on a technical college degree. I go back to school and I'm double degreeing in business management and marketing. And I'm sitting in this business management class with all these teenagers pulling straight A's. And they're like, how do you do that, old man? And I'm like, I've lived it. That's what I should have done when that happened.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because I've already experienced it. Those classes were a walk in the park because now those things made sense. And now I knew what the correct method of resolution was. And so waiting to go to college for me was a benefit because it allowed me to graduate with honors as an older individual.
If you went in when you were younger, probably would have got a C's, get degrees. That was, I think my average was like a C, C+.
Oh yeah, no, I think it was close to 3.9.
Yeah, there you go.
So
I don't know what our GPA system would have converted to.
Sure.
For that.
Yeah.
So like just a C, C+, probably that's pass, right? C- is a pass.
Correct.
And so that's like just barely a pass.
Oh
But the joke that we used to have is that A's go into research and the B students end up working for the C students. And so far out of everybody's like school, like my friends that I went to university with, it's actually held true.
Yeah.
In a sense, because like I was a C student. I didn't care about I wanted to go out and experience that. But there's some classes that I did really well in and some that I didn't do really well in. And so just think.
But if you're listening, if you're listening to this podcast, I want to rob that from you because most of us with ADHD, we're seeing students like that are lucky to pull C's and D's. School is hard.
It is.
But when you get out and you work with your hands, it's a completely different scenario. And so there is a tremendous amount in the heating and air trades that were C students that are running multiple million-dollar companies today.
100%.
Because of common sense, because using their senses, because they have those things figured out.
Correct. And they also put their pride aside and they hire people that are smarter than them.
Exactly.
Because they don't need to know everything.
Exactly.
All right. We've talked a little bit about trade school, what is school. We've talked about my journey, your journey. You've obviously been in the field as a technician. You've ran a business. Now you're on the distributor side. You're with Copeland. There's a lot of different career paths that somebody can go on in the HVAC or HVAC industry. What do you think is the most underrated career path in the industry right now?
I think we're slowly overcoming just simply being the boots on the ground tech.
Yeah.
I think the value there is so much greater than what general culture has played it to be over the last 20, 30 years.
I would side with that.
And that's part of my message that I want to share is we need to celebrate our ADHD. We need to celebrate the fact that we can look at something and figure it out, that somebody sitting behind a desk 5-6 days a week, 40 hours a week and no more, they're clueless at. And we are a very, very needful part of society. We'll just put it that way.
I would agree with that.
That is something that the general population, and I think we heard it here at this show even, that we have no fear of AI taking over the role of the technician. The way that you resolve things and figure things out is boots on the ground, hands, eyes on it.
A robot simply can't right now. And I don't think it ever will get to the point of installing or fixing or diagnosing or repairing a unit. AI can help with diagnosing.
Absolutely.
So it blew on.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't replace the actual person. You get a control board and you have to finesse a control board in there. Like I watched a reel last night when I was doom scrolling before bed of this guy that bought an $80,000 robot for his house. and the robot was trying to cook, and it kept tipping the pan upside down and putting it on the floor, and then it was slipping on the stuff and falling. It saw a mirror as like a window, and it kept running into the mirror and breaking. Maybe he programmed it. It was probably for that, but they're just not there yet.
Yeah,
so I agree with that. All right, last question as we wrap this up. And again, thank you, Jim, for coming on and taking some time out of Epic 2026. Be at Epic 2027.
I'm looking forward to it.
I'll be here next year. I think Epic is actually one of my favorite ones to go to because they just run it they run an event the right way, and they execute it phenomenally. So shout out to you guys, Epic, for running a great show. Last question, what is the proudest moment of your career in the industry so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. That would be, as far as career, where I'm at today, just simply being able to give back to the industry. What's that look like? If I was to single out a single moment, possibly a new product concept that we're working through the patent process right now that we introduced, and the company is
Was it your idea?
Sure, yeah.
Nice.
And we're hopefully going to have that patent in place here in a year or two and be able to
exciting. That is exciting.
Some another level of comfort in the residential marketplace. And don't know, every company has those going on all the time. Yep. This isn't something unique or special or from that aspect. But it was just the ability to be able to contribute to the industry in that way.
That's super cool. I can't wait to start to see them come out. So I'm gonna flip that. What would be the proudest moment in your personal life so far?
Oh, that's a tough one. That's just really going to be a challenge, I think, to come up with. There's lots of good moments. There's life events that are major changing life events of being baptized Christian. That would probably be top. Being married, having a wife that's hung with me through the thick and thin of 28 plus years. Becoming a dad. The first time, the second time, the third time, the fourth time.
Do you still remember the first time? And I was thinking, what would be mine so far? And be like, it'd be probably hearing my son cry, like when he was born, right? Because it was we had an emergency C-section, and long story, I don't need to make that. But when I heard the crying of the kid, I was like, I'm a dad.
Yeah, mine might have been a moment or two, and this is a little more graphic and picturesque here, but in the US, you go to these classes to be the correct dad for this process, and they teach you, now you can write out something that directives that you want to give. And I always felt like it was symbolic that as the dad, I was the one that had the privilege of severing the cord of life from mom to be an independent breather and live on their own. And so that was a very intense moment to be able to cut cords through that. I remember when the oldest came home, you talk about crying there. I remember the cry the first night as he's waking up, and it's life is never going to be the same. And I was right, it's not. But it's been a good thing. It's been a great thing. And to round that all out, that next moment would be the first grandson that arrived a year and a half ago. And that's, you just can't put words into. Now I'm telling my age, I'm a grandpa.
I think you almost did when you said you started trade school in 1988. So I mathed it out a little bit already.
I like the term pops.
There you go, pops. Awesome. So great information here today, Jim. Thank you for taking the time out. Of course, if anybody wants to reach out to Jim, how can they get in touch with you?
That could be a little difficult. Email works. It's jim.fultz@copeland.com.
There we go. We don't need to give his cell phone out.
I keep track of my LinkedIn account pretty good. So messaging on LinkedIn works easy as well.
Awesome.
And I like to put a lot of content out on that to share my passion in the industry. So
awesome.
I appreciate the time here today. This has been great.
This is fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And thanks guys for watching.